I really, really, really am privileged to have those long-term relationships and be considered part of the community on that basis.
Welcome to Talking Shop, the Communities Inc. podcast. Episode 14, How do organisations build trust?
Hi everybody, my name's Shamsha. Welcome to the Communities Inc. podcast. We're joined by Cherry Underwood today. Hi Cherry, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Great. So first of all, Cherry, just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background.
Okay, so I ended up in community regeneration work, really quite surprisingly. I went to uni and did countryside management. So my plan was to go and build dry stone walls and manage sheep. Somehow along the way, I got waylaid. I actually had the opportunity to go and work for Groundwork in Blackburn, Lancashire, as a graduate, and it was there that I was taken on in the Hearts and Minds team and learned that people make a place, and it fascinated me the impact that people have on a place, and I was really lucky to work for them for nearly 7 years, and then I had the opportunity to come and work in Nottingham in St Anne's, and I haven't moved. So I've done 24 years now in St Anne's and Sneinton.
At the Renewal Trust?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I worked in Tank before the Renewal Trust, but in the area, for 24 years.
Wow.
Okay.
So tell us about the Renewal Trust then. What did it start off doing? How has it developed over the years?
So the Renewal Trust was the exit strategy, if you like, for City Challenge. So one of the very first area-specific regeneration programmes. And my predecessor was very clever in identifying that some of the capital funding would be invested in land. And then the ground rent for that land is paid in perpetuity for 80 years into the Renewal Trust. So it gives us a really solid core income. The charity itself is about the relief of poverty in St Anne's and Sneinton, which is really broad, really, really broad. We know there are so many determinants, if you like, of poverty. So it's allowed us to do such a lot over the years, but a lot of focus on employment support, on community development, on physical activity, and on physical spaces. So yes, that's what we've done over the years. We've obviously platformed quite a lot of different or new regeneration programmes. Both Sure Start St Anne's and Sure Start Sneinton originated through the Renewal Trust. The restoration and protection of St Anne's allotments established through the Renewal Trust. So the £4.5 million of heritage lottery and European money that's been invested in that site came via the Renewal Trust and our application. So it's evolved over the years, and basically it needs to continue to evolve. You know, making sure that we meet the needs of our local community is more important to us than obviously chasing the funding.
Yeah, I mean that's a massively sort of diverse area of
incredibly
things that you've mentioned. So I mean, tell us about a couple of the things that you're currently doing at the moment then.
So currently the organisation's quite complex, if you like, in terms of how it's set up. So if you imagine the Renewal Trust is the mother company, it's a company but it's also a charity, and then underneath that we have two subsidiary companies, one of which is an income generator, so we manage 3 business centres. The purpose of that is to purely generate money back into the charity, and then we have a separate company who manage St Anne's allotments. Our focus at the moment is really understanding how we meet the needs of our community. Is it about bricks and mortar? Because we've been quite renowned, if you like, for our properties and our work with property. But actually that's not what people need right now. The cost of living crisis, the public health crisis that we're in, is more about how can we help people on a very face-to-face, hand-to-mouth type basis. So we're actually going through quite an interesting period of repositioning the charity around that face-to-face hand-holding, and rebuilding our social fabric and our relationships across our community rather than managing spaces.
Yeah, and I would imagine that in relation to addressing some of those sort of complex needs and multiple needs, that you're working in partnership with other organisations to be able to achieve that. So,
Couldn't do it without them.
I was going to say, so, why is that collaboration important for the Renewal Trust?
Because you can't, nobody can work through the complexities of the support that our communities need without working together. It just doesn't work. So we are really, really fortunate in that we are recognised as a go-to organisation in the area. They came about through COVID. We run 3 networks: the Hardship Network, the Health and Wellbeing Network, and the Children and Young People's Network, which actually, the Children and Young People's, we've been running for about 15 years now. And it's about bringing organisations together around those themes, because you don't know what you don't know. And it's amazing how many new organisations come in or aren't aware of what's already going on. And duplication has no place now. We need to work together, but we need to work together more effectively. So that brings together over 100 different partners, those 3 networks. Wow. Over 100 different partners. Very specifically on the ground, we work so many partnerships, very, very closely in partnership with the probation service on St Anne's allotments, so able to provide them with really good quality placements and training opportunities, particularly through some funding with Scottish Power. Work very, very closely with Communities Inc. And the Notts Fire and Rescue Service and Nottingham University Hospitals on the Future Leaders programme, trying to address the lack of diversity across our leadership, particularly in our public sector in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. And on the ground, it could be triathlon and British Triathlon and Metropolitan Housing working together to pull a programme together in partnership for young women who don't access physical activities traditionally, making it really accessible for them.
Yeah. So do you think working in partnerships builds that resilience? When you've got other people that are working towards, you're working towards a common goal, does that help to sort of build the resilience between the partners?
It does, and I'm not a massive fan of resilience, because you ask, what does resilience mean to one of our families? To just look at, you gone out, have I got enough money, to pay electricity in the meter, or if we didn't work in partnership, we couldn't do as much as we do and offer as much as we do to so many people. What it does is bring in skills and opportunities that wouldn't otherwise be available to our communities in a way that we know will work with the communities that we're working with. It's very easy for some organisations to parachute in and say, we've got this fantastic offer, and they land and they just do it, and then they're horrified because nobody joins them or nobody comes along. You haven't translated your offer, or you haven't made your offer accessible to these communities for these reasons. So working in partnership allows us to do that really, really effectively.
I mean, doing such a vast sort of diversity of projects over a range of sort of complex issues, there must be times when things get tough. How do you sort of manage it when the chips are down, when things maybe aren't working so well?
When the chips are down, I'm quite well. There you go. Only use a resilient word. I'm a glass half full person. I'm quite an optimistic person. Really fortunate to work with a really good team. Really got some really great people working around us, and I sort of have to reset myself and say, it might be hard today, but we can make this better. There's nothing that's insurmountable, particularly if you work in partnership and if you work with others. If you don't know the answer, go and ask, and go and talk to people, because we've got some really, really, really exciting opportunities, really clever people, some things that have not even been touched in Nottingham that actually, just go and find out what else is available. I generally am not a negative person. If I am negative, I tend to be quite cross. I come out fighting, if you like, and I will fight for our communities to get the best. I've ever since I started working in St Anne's, I've really fought, and I'm quite strong with that word, about the perception that, it's St Anne's, they'll get this, it'll do. No, it's not acceptable. Either bring the best or don't bother. These communities deserve the best, and I will fight for that. St Anne's, Sneinton, and have done, in the same way that we hold an interesting space around organisation, the media coming in and wanting to talk to us about, well, this has happened, what are your thoughts? I'm not going to talk about anything negative that's happened in our area. I'm not going to fuel that. And we've been criticised for that position, but you should engage the media, not if they're going to portray the area negatively. So we push back quite hard on that, and the whole organisation holds that really firm space about that, which I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I suppose
actually.
that could be at times sort of quite counterproductive to what you're trying to achieve, really.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
you know, why would you?
Yeah, it puts the media against you as well a little bit, because they all want to. We want to quote from you. You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to get it if you're portraying this area in that way. No, it's a closed door.
So something that's happened recently, a Section 114 notice has been issued by Nottingham City Council. Could you just tell us what that is and what the implications of that has been?
It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. Essentially, it means that the city is bankrupt and can't present a balanced budget. Interestingly, we now have the police in special measures. We also have the NHS in the area in special measures. And what does it mean to us? It obviously meant that a huge amount of funding was withdrawn from the whole of the voluntary sector, and the Renewal Trust lost some, along with many others. But it was how it was done that made me incredibly angry. The City Council actively misled and lied to the city residents about what was going to happen when they did their consultation. It wasn't a consultation. They referred to reductions in the funding, and it was a total cut, 100% cut of the funding. So they've pulled the rug from underneath the voluntary sector's feet, and they knew about this 2 years ago. They knew they were heading towards this position for 2 years, if not more. There could have been a staged approach to this, a staged withdrawal. No, it's essentially just chucking the sector off the cliff.
And it's just 100% cut.
100% cut. So that's across communities of identity, across the area-based grant providers. It's so many organisations have been impacted, whether that's Women's Aid, the Refugee Forum, ourselves. It's across the board. We will lose organisations. We will lose voluntary sector organisations. For ourselves, we foresaw what was coming. We anticipated what was coming. So we'd made changes in anticipation of that. But immediately in our local area means that there's no bespoke employment support for local people. The amount of provision for young people, universal provisions, that's very open access provision, is absolutely minimised. And if you think about post-COVID, our children are one of the most impacted communities. Suddenly we're withdrawing all their, outside of school, they have nowhere that their community centres are being closed, youth centres are being closed, youth activities closing, and then suddenly they don't have any youth work or youth activities that they can go into where they can start to socialise again and build their relationships. They're so badly impacted by COVID, and we are really, really doing a disservice. And I just don't think the city have understood that. What they presented as their in the 114 budget changes was individual reductions. Reductions in the library service, or changes in library service, changes in youth service, changes in the voluntary sector, all individually. And individually, it was bad. Collectively, nobody presented that collective position. And every single one of those cuts will disproportionately affect the most deprived communities of the city. And the City Council have got away with that. And it's utterly disgraceful. Nobody's really challenged it.
I was going to say, how have some of those groups been impacted?
That some of them will go. Some of them will just have to close. We've worked with one organisation in our area already around redundancies and winding up. And it won't be the only one. I would have thought this year and potentially next year, we'll see the full impact. Some organisations will be able to ride a year, maybe two, and then we'll really see it bite. But that will bite at the same time as there is more demand, because not only is the sector being decimated, the state's withdrawing massively. With the city are consulting at the moment around libraries. Well, libraries aren't about buildings. Libraries are about a space to meet and books and people getting together. Why is there not a different way of thinking about that? But no, it's just about the bricks and mortar. We've got to shut it. It's really blinkered, and I think it's a really dangerous time, to be honest, for the city. So I think it's very much up to the voluntary sector to respond to that and provide alternative responses. And I'll reiterate, it's about the voluntary sector, not the third sector, which repeatedly gets levelled at us. The City Council use it. Our trade book magazine, if you like, is the third sector. I hate it. It's demeaning. It's like, why are we the third sector? It's not like public and private are first and second.
Yeah.
I think it demeans us and it deprofessionalises the sector. And that's just fundamentally wrong. So, yeah, I don't like the term third sector.
It's like the terms that we use for third world.
Yeah.
Third world countries is sort of not good enough. Not.
Yeah, it's demeaning. It's not acceptable. I just, at any point, I hate the term.
So it's just really ironic, isn't it, that at the time when there's the greatest need, that these cuts are happening at that time. And like you say, it sounds like quite a scary scenario for quite a few people that, you know, that especially those that are vulnerable that need these services, that, you know, and I don't say it lightly, sometimes these are life-saving services. Not just sort of improving the quality of your life, but saving your life.
Absolutely. There's, you know, some that we've got a fantastic programme, Feel Good Gold, which is about bringing vulnerable older people, so 60 plus, into one of our facilities on a Wednesday. It's a social gathering, and we provide a hot meal during the summer, you know, something else, salad, whatever. For some of those people, it's the only time of the week that they get out. The only time of the week that somebody actually has contact with them. Anything could happen to those individuals. And things have happened. And it is really quite disturbing in an environment like St Anne's and Sneinton, where, you know, it's very close, it's very busy, it's close to the city centre, there's actually an awful lot available, and still we have people who don't have any contact, you know, what, maybe just once in a week. Equally, we've done back to school events where we use a company called In Kind, so we get goods through In Kind at very discounted rates. So we do things like rucksacks, pencil cases, lunch boxes and drinks bottles ready for going back to school. If you've got 3 children going back to school in September, that's really expensive. Yeah. So doing that, and just, they're quite small gestures in a lot of ways, but the difference that makes to families is immense. Yeah. Absolutely immense. And we have families queuing down the road. Yeah. And I'm delighted that we can offer it, but we shouldn't really have to.
Yeah, and I guess it's also gestures like that sort of make people feel included, because when you provide things for people, when you help people out, it makes them feel that somebody cares.
Yeah.
Somebody's recognised that they're struggling, and somebody cares enough that they're going to help you. And so you're part of something. You're part of something much bigger than just your own family. And I guess if that's not available, it could feel quite alienating and isolating.
I feel very alienated, isolated. It's stigmatised. People are really stigmatised. You know, going into food banks is essential for so many families, but you're accessing a food bank. Yeah. And that can be, as I said, there can be a stigma attached to that. We've worked hard through our new centre, Cherry Lodge, to develop the Feel Good programme. And that's what it's about. It's about feeling good about yourself. Yeah. If you feel good about yourself, you feel better about yourself, you can actually achieve so much more. And we have a raft of provision around us. So Feel Good Gold is our older people. Feel Good Families are families who are, I hate the term referred, recommended. Yeah. Recommended particularly by schools, just needing that little bit of help. And they can come in and we can do a bag of essentially household and personal hygiene. So if you think about the cost of toothpaste, toothbrushes, toilet roll, they're essential items, but my goodness, they're expensive. You've got 2 or 3 children, it's incredibly expensive. So we're able to offer that very, very, easy in, easy out. And then we've got Lego Club, and we did a Feel Good Festival at the weekend. So a lot of it's about really positive, bringing people together. There's no ask.
Yeah.
No ask at all. Just come and have a good time, because people need to rebuild their relationships. People need to feel positive about themselves. And you don't need to do a lot to help that on. It's those little gestures, I think, that are making the bigger difference. And the more we can build those connections and build those relationships, the more people feel empowered to do more.
Yeah.
And then we can build on that, and we can potentially signpost to other people. But yes, so that's what we're focusing on at the moment.
I mean, in our Stand By Me programme, we talk about those connections and the importance of those connections. The deep psychology of the bystander is when you see something happening and you think, that person's got nothing to do with me. They don't live on my street, they don't work in the place that I'm at, they don't go to where I go to. And actually, the only thing that really sort of helps with that is making those connections. Because if we can connect with people, then we can feel empathy. If we can feel empathy, we're more likely to get involved, more likely to help them if they need help. And we also talk about micro-affirmations on our training, which is almost the opposite of microaggressions. They're just tiny acts and gestures of inclusion.
Yes.
And it's just as simple as, I always say, if I'm walking down the street and there's a little old lady walking towards me, I'll always make a point of saying hello.
Yes.
And, sometimes their face lights up because it's, like you said, people that maybe don't interact with people on a regular basis. And it doesn't take much for me to do. I've been trying to teach my niece that, being nice to people, smiling, all of those things make a difference.
Absolutely. Well, I grew up very similarly. My mum was a real advocate for good manners cost nothing, but they'll get you a very long way. My son, I can hear my son echo it now at 18. Yeah. And it's true, because people don't, there's almost like there's a fear of making a facial connection with somebody. But the difference that makes to somebody on the street is absolutely immense. Yeah. And that's, as you said, that's exactly that. It is about creating lots and lots and lots of micro affirmations. This weekend, nearly 900 people came along to our Feel Good Festival. Nothing was asked of anybody. Just come and just be, bring your children, bring your family, picnic if you want, just lovely space for people to have a good time and that they can afford to do.
So I know you were saying that in terms of the cuts that you knew were going to happen, you'd sort of had a level of preparation for them. But, what's your plan going ahead, say for the next year, the next couple of years? How are you able to sort of manage that with the variety of work and issues that you're trying to address?
So it's been about working with the families that we've engaged with over the past sort of 2-3 years, particularly out the back of the pandemic, to really understand what it is that's important to them. And so we've done a lot of consultation and survey work with them. And it's about family opportunities. So we hadn't really consciously understood that. We'd traditionally done a lot of work around young people and youth work. And we've done older people's training courses or whatever. But actually it's about families. And there's a bit of an old adage, I don't buy into it completely, but families who play together stay together. There's very few family activities available. And that is really, really important. So we're focusing more on that and actually being able to finally access our Cherry Lodge, our new facility, if you like, which is just perfect for this type of activity. It's right on the corner of King Edward Park, which is a really popular park. It's on a main arterial road through our area, so Carlton Road. There's a bus stop right outside, Lidl's opposite, loads of parking. And families know it well. It used to be a nursery many, many years ago. We get parents coming in now saying, I used to go to nursery here and bring my children here now, which is really lovely. Yeah. So we've been able to lease that eventually on a long-term lease from the City Council. It's only taken us 9 years to negotiate that. Quite ridiculous. But we now have that space and it's super accessible, super friendly, super welcoming. And we focus all our work. So our Feel Good Gold older persons session is there. We do a mini movers, under fours, dinosaurs and messy play
Right.
there as well. We do our Feel Good Families there, we do our Feel Good Festival there, and in time we're going to move staff over there, so right in the heart of the community, really accessible. And then we'll start to offload some of our buildings, because it's not, bricks and mortar is not what matters to people. It's about our connections, it's about our relationships, it's about our ability to respond, both as an organisation and both as a community as well. So that will take time, working with the city council is like pulling teeth, so it's very, very difficult, and what should take a couple of months will probably take a couple of years realistically. But that's where we're going. Our priority is to work as closely as we can, as hand in hand as we can with our communities, to advocate for them, and to support them where we can, and work with our partners.
So you've been at the Renewal Trust for a long time. How many years did you say?
Quite a long time, 24.
24 years. I mean, that's quite a long time. I mean, to me, that means it must be a special organisation that you've stayed there that long for. What makes it so special?
It is, and I think it's clearly, I'm not career-minded. I think it's a vocation, but I am incredibly privileged. We're very, very fortunate to have worked not just in the Renewal Trust, but in the area long enough to have very long-term relationships now with individuals, with organisations. How many jobs can you be in a position whereby you've had young people come into youth work sessions who've then gone on and volunteered with you, who you've then gone on and appointed into roles, who now have left and have their own children, and still have that really close relationship with them, and in their case, that's an absolute privilege, and you just don't get that in so many jobs. But it makes the difference to understand the area, to have those long-term relationships. And I think lots of people have said to me over the years, more than 2 years and you need to move on, you'll never move on to another job now. I don't care. I really, really, really am privileged to have those long-term relationships and be considered part of the community on that basis. And it's important to what we do.
Yeah.
So it is a very special organisation. It's always evolving and it always will evolve. But I think to have that close connection with the community is absolutely essential, and I'm very fortunate to have it.
So, with the variety of work that you do, if there's somebody out there listening to this and thinking, I wouldn't mind getting involved or I wouldn't mind finding out more, how can they get involved? What are the opportunities they've got, and how can they contact you?
There's so many opportunities. We work with lots of companies and lots of individuals around volunteering. We could not do what we do on any of the programmes I've mentioned without volunteers. They are the lifeblood of what we do, and I am phenomenally grateful. And actually, we're at the tail end of Volunteers Week this week, aren't we? We've been celebrating our volunteers every day this week. Just a phenomenal group of people. Some who are long-term with us. Jude, been with us 3 years. Copley Scientific, a new company who've just started working with us, based locally. Sam and Oasis, mother and son, who volunteer with us. There's so many opportunities. Please do. Please get in touch if you'd like to volunteer. There's so many opportunities, so many different ways. And I think every single person who's volunteered with us has thoroughly enjoyed it, but has wanted to come back. Yeah. We haven't had a single volunteer who's never come back. And I think that's quite testament to the communities we work with, but also the opportunities that they're getting when they're volunteering with us. So very, very simply, contact Sarah or Kylie at the Renewal Trust on 0115 911 2226, or email us on enquiries@renewaltrust.org.uk. And we'd love to hear from people. If you've only got an hour to spare, we'd love it. If you've got an hour every day, marvellous. But whatever you can spare, perfect.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Cherry. It's been great catching up with you. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. We'd need to have you back several times to talk about everything that you do. But thanks for giving us a bit of a snapshot of some of the challenges that you're facing at the moment, but also some of the ways that you're trying to address that and get round that.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.